On the morning of January 15, 1947, Betty Bersinger was walking through a residential Los Angeles neighborhood with her young daughter. Up ahead, she spotted what looked like a discarded, broken mannequin resting in the grass. As she got closer, she realized it was the body of a 22-year-old woman named Elizabeth Short. The body had been severed completely at the waist, drained of blood, and washed clean before being positioned in a deliberate pose. Investigators reconstructed Elizabeth's final week, placing her at hotels and restaurants across Southern California until January 9th. After that, the record goes dark. No witness could identify where she spent her final hours before her body appeared in that vacant lot, leaving a total void. Elizabeth Short had moved to Los Angeles from the East Coast, working various jobs while navigating the post-war city. The media myths that followed her death. There is no evidence she was an actress or involved in organized crime. She was one of thousands of young people drawn to the promise of Hollywood glamour. The killer had left her body in a highly visible residential area, yet managed to do so without leaving a single physical trace behind for the police to follow. The condition of the remains suggested a specific background. The precise bisection of the body and the blood drainage indicated a killer who possessed professional anatomical or butchery knowledge. This narrowed the initial search to butchers, medical students, and surgeons, anyone with the clinical skill required to perform such a clean, methodical procedure. Dr. George Hodel, a prominent Los Angeles physician, eventually became the most widely discussed suspect because his professional background matched this specific medical profile. Decades later, Hodel's son, a retired detective, argued his father committed the murder, citing police surveillance records and suspicious statements recorded at the time. While the circumstantial evidence against suspects like Hodel was significant, the investigation hit a wall because of the scientific realities of the era. In 1947, investigators lacked the tools of modern forensic science. Without DNA analysis, there was no way to scientifically link a suspect to the physical evidence found at the scene. The killer had also actively neutralized standard 1940s techniques by thoroughly washing the body, removing any potential hair or fiber evidence that might have provided a path forward. When the killer later sent Elizabeth's personal belongings to the press, they cleaned the items with gasoline. This move effectively obliterated any chance of recovering usable fingerprints. Reporters coined the Black Dahlia nickname to sell more papers, borrowing from the title of a recent film noir. The dramatic name turned the tragedy into a national obsession, sparking a frenzy that changed the direction of the case. This publicity generated a flood of false confessions and thousands of anonymous tips. Police resources were entirely consumed by checking these dead-end stories, rather than focusing on viable suspects. The investigation stalled because it was caught between a crime scene scrubbed of evidence and a public focus that had moved away from the facts and toward the spectacle. Over 75 years later, the case is essentially frozen. Witnesses have died and evidence has degraded, leaving researchers to debate interpretations of the same decades-old files. Most serial offenders are caught through patterns. They repeat methods and target types, creating a trail of behavioral evidence that eventually reveals their identity. However, if the person responsible only murdered once, or only once in this specific high-profile way, no pattern ever existed for the police to track. The case endures as a moment where a surgically precise killer met an era completely unequipped to identify him. Without a conviction, the question of who took Elizabeth Short to that unknown location remains one of history's most famous mysteries.